Who said the pledge last time? It's falling off my preparation. I think it
Showalter.
The appointed hour is upon us, so why don't we go ahead and call our meeting to order. As we rise for a moment of silence tonight, it's such a profoundly important date for modern American history, being September the 11th, and all of those brave first responders and citizens that gave their lives. And as we rise for a moment of silence, I hope that they will be firmly on our mind, and all of our fellow citizens in Texas and Florida as well. And after that moment of silence, Mr. Bradley, if you could lead us in the pledge of the flag, please.
Pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Shall we call the roll? Hey, David, your timing is impeccable. Yeah.
Mr. Bradley?
Here.
Mrs. Spitzer Conway?
Here.
Mrs. Singer Erdley?
Here.
Mr. Lesby?
Here.
Mr. Showalter?
Here.
Mrs. Tingle Sames?
Here.
Mrs. Tackett? Here. Mr. Thompson?
Here.
Thank you. We definitely have a quorum. Each of you should have a copy of the minutes of our last regularly scheduled meeting of August 28. If you'd like to look those over for any possible corrections or additions.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Motion's been made
I'll second.
and seconded. And if there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Also, your packet should have a copy of the latest check register. If you'd indicate you received that register, thank you. Public comments. Let's see. We have Mr. Stephen Price.
Thank you. I'm Stephen Price. I live at 167 Rucker Avenue in Georgetown. In the last week, I've either hand-delivered or mailed each of you a letter and a bunch of supporting paperwork regarding dry as opposed to wet management of septic waste, home, whatever you want to call it, excreta, perishable home byproducts. In this case, with reference to the Georgetown Mobile Homes trailer park. And I in that paperwork I sent you, there's quite a bit of detail about the actual technique of managing perishable home byproduct for sanitation as well as for fertilizer. And to the paperwork I mailed you, or handed to you, delivered to you, I would add the following letter. I write you regarding Georgetown Mobile Estates and your recent resolutions. This is addressed to the town council and to the fiscal court. I write you regarding your recent resolutions that call for Kentucky Division of Water to deny renewal of sewage treatment permits there. Mayor Prather and Judge Lesby, you are both quoted in the news graphic as conceding that local government's anti-pollution efforts regarding the trailer park, which you lead, could include actions that shut down Georgetown Mobile Estates. Such shutdown would, by evicting the residents, threaten both Georgetown and Scott County and Lexington and Fayette County with homelessness, I should say possible homelessness, overcrowded housing, crime, abuse of alcohol and drugs that attends dislocation and hardship, and general instability. I write this letter to add to my comments to you about the preferable alternative to the shutdown of the trailer park. My suggested solution, that is sanitation by dry management and composting of perishable home byproducts at each mobile home, would generate fertilizer for horticulture crops at each mobile home. And so the dry composting solution should then incentivize and encourage the practice of home horticulture by all residents of the mobile estates, causing some 1,500 to 2,000 residents of Scott County to take up seriously the practice of horticulture would benefit us in the following ways. Residents would acquire an occupation that reduces crime, alcohol and drug abuse, and other vices. Residents would eat healthier. Residents would enjoy better health due to the physical exertion required by horticulture. Residents induced to garden at home rather than buy their staples would drive less and thus reduce motor transport. Residents, by learning and practicing horticulture, could be expected to expand, commercialize, and popularize horticulture and to increase the productions of our community instead of consuming them. That is, to make our community more abundant. Jefferson, who you may know was a farmer and who advocated farming at in the early days of the colonies and later of the United States, wrote that cultivators of the earth are the most valuable citizens. Should not then public policy at every possible occasion encourage and support cultivators of the earth? Should not an occasion, or I said, no, I'm sorry, such an occasion has arisen at Georgetown Mobile Estates, where after a decade or more of mismanagement, fertile home byproducts can now, under revised public policy, be dry managed, composted, and applied as fertilizer to home horticulture and to a resurgence in Scott County of that most resourceful and noble occupation. And I would add in the PS, furthermore, let me say I forgot to include in this letter that what I meant to do was urge you to add to your resolution addressed to the Kentucky Division of Water, add to it with a request that they allow, or that they at least consider dry management and composting as a way of keeping the trailer park open. So, but since you already mailed mailed it to them, is that correct? Mm-hmm. So you would have to add. I mean, if you're interested in this, you would have to add an addendum or mail them an addendum. And I'll close by saying that yesterday's Herald Leader included an editorial. I'll put a copy of it there with you, with the letter, regarding the impact of public policy or lack of it on climate change and resulting weather-caused disasters like we've witnessed recently in Texas and Florida. But public policy that encourages pedestrianism and reduces motor transport is, of course, environment-friendly and further climate-friendly. Public policy in Scott County should consequently seek to engage all residents in home and neighborhood horticulture as opposed to motor shopping. Residents of Georgetown Mobile Estates, because of the convergent issue of sanitation, should especially be so encouraged. and because of the sanitation issue, may be the most easily induced to practice home horticulture. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a comment for the council, to the council. I am unwilling to recommend dry trench fertilizing to meet our sewage needs. And I'd be happy to respond to a motion if somebody wants to make one, but thank you. Next on the list for public comments for Toys for Tots is Christy White here? Come on up, Christy.
Yeah, I'm nervous. I've never done this before.
Well, that's okay. Everybody has their first time at the podium.
Okay, thank you. So we've done this for almost 5 years now, and every year we try to get all the permits and stuff that we need, and we haven't had to have any permits, but I guess as it's gotten bigger, now I'm here to see if certain stuff is going to let us pass with. I know we had to have security. We've got that covered. Who was it for? I can't remember what you said.
The PGW Wrestling Federation, they actually have 3 licensed security guards that will head up the security. We have over 30 people that will actually be out there pulling off security.
Yeah.
And
And
it-
it's
And as well, we got some of the guys from the fire department, they're gonna volunteer to come out and help out as well. That way we'll have some kind of medical staff on hand as well.
Good. Yeah, I noticed that,
This is a different event.
different event.
They've also changed the time. It's gonna be from 11 to 8.
11
Instead of
in the morning
going
till
after. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you close it.
So that way we're not going to be, any noise ordinance after 10.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we can avoid all.
Yeah,
All the
yeah.
other options.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's gonna be in the parking lot, right?
Right.
Have you got everything?
There's going to be like a car show there, a bike show, wrestling's going to be there. The bands, of course, are going to be playing, and it's all for Toys for Tots. Like we get food and donations for toys.
What's the date?
October
October 8th.
Okay.
And I appreciate you working closely with the fire department.
Yeah.
And to the extent that you can include Chief Swanigan with the police department,
Right.
we'll all be on the same page.
Okay.
I make a motion for her to be able to do that as long as Tracy's got everything she needs.
I think she's got all she needs.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You did well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right. And also, I don't see him in the room, but we have, Mr. Tim Thompson is requesting for us to have the fire parade again, and they filled out all the paperwork.
If he's not
We're
here
looking
now,
at
I don't know.
October 14th, beginning at 10 o'clock. We'll close down the street at 10, parade at 11, and we'll dismantle by noon.
Motion, Mayor.
Thank you. Second, thank you. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye. Pardon?
14th,
The 14th.
10 o'clock, till noon.
I'll try again. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Let's see, and that concludes public comments.
And we throw candy out that parade.
We can throw candy out in that parade. Boy, there were a
Well,
bunch of
we
disappointed.
had little kids had their bags and tears in their eyes. It felt terrible.
I know.
You missed
I
the
know.
And
date.
Karen and I going up the road, we had a sucker in our mouth going up the plate, so that didn't help none either.
We were,
That was after the kids though.
the concern was
Yeah, the horses
children
and
coming
stuff.
out to it.
Yeah.
But we as a council, we'll get together and I'll buy a bunch through Walmart if you like, and we'll have a bunch of candy for them this time.
Millie's got a
Oh,
lot
I've
left.
got something
Millie's
left.
got
I
tons left.
wasn't able
There you
to
go.
use. Millie was getting ready to throw it out. We were like, no, Millie,
Millie,
no. On the floor.
I didn't think she had enough energy after she ran up Main Street to catch the ride.
They had to do that, didn't you, Marvin? You just had
Your
to.
bad leg.
That's good of you though.
Things about cars and stuff, doesn't she, Mayor? Should have told the police
She
to
does.
get out of the way.
Well-
I'm going for that.
What I can tell you tonight is that we are recording the meeting, and we will show it. We will show it later, but we're not live broadcast. So you're off the hook.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Millie, you got there.
It was important to me to be there.
There you
It
go.
was. Speaking of
work.
the Festival of the Horse, could not be more proud of tourism and public works and police and fire and all of the city and county, city employees mainly, that did great work. We finally had a beautiful weekend for the Festival of the Horse.
And it
We
showed.
did.
Best weather
Attendance.
ever.
And we were due for a
Amazing.
pretty
Yes, we
weekend.
were.
And there was a great crowd Thursday night at the chili cook-off. I didn't get up to see the children's parade, but there was a great crowd down at Royal Spring Park for the Seed to Feed dinner on Friday night. I witnessed firsthand our traffic issues on Water Street Friday night. And if you want to reinforce the need for us to do something, just go to a weekend event down there, and you will walk away understanding that we need to take action. And then glad the council got to ride in the Saturday night parade, and I heard a rumor that you all
We've already
you
booked
made
it.
arrangements with the guy for the Christmas
Christmas
parade as
parade.
well.
Yes, we did.
Good for you. Thought the Seed to Feed dinner was a beautiful setting. Royal Spring Park really needs attention. It needs a substantial amount of attention. However, Parks and Recreation and Public Works really worked hard to get it mowed, trimmed, looking as good as it could for Saturday evening, and it really did look good. Karen, I thought the flowers spoke to the location, and they were beautifully done.
Thank you very much.
Well done. Also, just a couple of issues about the resolution that we passed concerning the package treatment plants out at the trailer parks. Fiscal Court has passed a similar resolution. We know that the water company and the Board of Health are going to pass similar resolutions. You probably are aware that there has been a hearing scheduled on this permit for September the 28th. When they were taking public comment and accepting requests for public hearing, Gene Thomas, our environmentalist with the local health board, did a formal objection and asked for a public hearing to be held in Scott County. I'm still not sure of the venue of this hearing. Some folks think it's going to be in Frankfurt, but we're trying to confirm that it'll be here. But we will have a public opportunity to speak to that permit. Also, wanted you to know that we've gotten very quick response from the Division of Water to our resolution. We emailed our resolution and our press release the following day to Peter Goodman, who's the director of the Division of Water. Their general counsel got back pretty quickly with Andrew, and we are scheduling a conference call that will be done between probably judge, county attorney, myself, and Andrew, and the Division of Water and their general counsel on the other end.
Good.
So we'll start with that conference call, and then we'll move to a face-to-face meeting, and then we'll bring more detail back to you. Also, there has been so much interest in this issue, and I'd like to thank Mark for helping with this, being a conduit. A number of the teachers and administration at Royal Spring Middle School have been asking about how this might impact their students. They have a lot of students from that trailer park. So I was pretty proud of the fact that they initiated emails seeking information, trying to see how this will affect their students. So Mark has worked with the principal, and we will be going out Wednesday afternoon at 4 o'clock to meet with Royal Springs Middle School teachers and staff that just want an update. And whatever information we have, we want to share with the school system. I saw one person this morning post this meeting on Facebook. I think it was just intended to be a sit-down with some administrators, but it could get larger just given the subject matter, and I wanted the council to be aware that Mark and I are going to go out and do that. I think Millie'd like to go, but anybody that would like to go out there and hear what the questions are, just wanted you to know we're going to be doing that. And believe it or not, that's the end of the mayor's comments. 21 minutes, that's not bad, guys. We've got a couple of really interesting things on our agenda tonight, and one is a project that the fiscal court has heard a lot about, and we're going to learn more about it this evening. And this is a wonderful idea of an ADA accessible playground for special needs children, and it will be followed once we see the presentation and the fundraising plan. We're being requested to allow this park to be put on the grounds at the pavilion. And since the city actually owns that property, it would be a council decision to allow the park to be located there. You're not being asked for the money tonight, remarkably.
If you want to, though. I mean, we will discuss that.
That's right. So with Kendall and Friends Foundation, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're the spokesman?
Yeah, I've been told 10 minutes. That's all I got.
And I told her, I wasn't sure who gave her 10. I had 5 in mind.
Well, all right. We're going to try. All right. My name is
You
Crimson.
take all the time you
It's
need.
okay. I'm joking. My name is Crimson from Kendall and Friends Foundation. We are a 501c3 nonprofit foundation specifically geared towards special needs children, disabled children, and adults as well. This all started from my daughter, who was born a typical healthy kid, who contracted meningitis at 3 weeks old, who was clinically brain dead. She was in a coma. She had 0 electrical activity. We were told that she would not live to be 2 months old, and believe it or not, that child is actually at our favorite Mexican restaurant in town right now, eating cheese and rice, and she will turn 7 in November.
Wonderful.
She is my own personal little hero. She's amazing. She's always happy. But even though she made it through that difficult time, she is very severely disabled. She's in a wheelchair. She is nonverbal. She has 7 brain tumors. She's partially blind in both eyes, but I'm serious. I wish I had brought a picture this size of her because you would absolutely fall in love with her. She is the sweetest, happiest kid that I have ever met in my entire life. So this nonprofit foundation obviously stemmed from her. Her name is Kendall. But last year, we were walking around our park in Mercer County and just realized that there's nothing there for her or for kids like her. So I went home and I told my husband that I was going to build a fully handicap accessible playground, and although I'm not allowed to use the terminology he did in the courtroom, in lesser words, you know, I was told I was completely crazy and it would take me about 5 years to get it done. So I went home that night, did a bunch of research, contacted different playground groups, and we finally finalized our plan. $300,000 price tag, and 5 months and 22 days later, we wrote that check to pay for Kendall and Friends Playground in Mercer County at Anderson Dean Park. It is a fenced-in playground that is 100% ADA handicap accessible from every piece of equipment that is located inside that fence. So from that stemmed Kendall and Friends Foundation. Again, 501c3 nonprofit. Our main goal is to continue to offer fully handicap accessible playgrounds. There are playgrounds that have maybe one swing or maybe a communication board, and they consider themselves fully handicap accessible, but I can promise you I can walk out there and show you every reason that they're not handicap accessible. My kid is 55 pounds, and she's picking up dead weight. You know, she cannot manipulate any of her weight. So for her to participate in a typical playground, that means Mama, who is not a very big person, obviously has to pick Kendall up and pack her through. And it got to a point where I could not do that anymore. So this is why inclusive playgrounds are a huge need, among others. So currently, right now, in Scott County school systems, last year and this year so far of what we've been told just by the school systems, you guys have over 1,500 special needs students. Now, when I say those numbers, that can range anywhere from autism to cerebral palsy to epilepsy to a learning disability. It could be a very wide range, but this only covers ages 5 to 21. Those are the kids that we can actually track that are in your school systems. If they're under 5, I have no idea. There are plenty of them, I can promise you that, and over 21 because they have phased out of the school system, so there's no way for us to legally track them, you know, because of HIPAA laws and all of that. So I was presented with the idea of bringing a fully handicap accessible playground to Georgetown, and we had originally planned for it to be at the new Great Crossing Park that is going to be owned fully by the county, correct? And we went and presented it to them. We passed with flying colors. Everybody was all for it. And then kind of shifted plans just a tad, and now they want it at the pavilion. Completely fine. I'm just more than happy to get it in Georgetown. So now I have to come ask you good people if you will approve this project. I will let you know that we work very, very hard to fund these playgrounds. I do not stand before you to request the money to pay for it. However, if at some point in the near future you all decide that this is a worthy cause, that you see and believe in the mission, and you think that this is worth taxpayers' money, which I can't see a better way to spend it. If there are funds available, or if you have some surplus money or revenue that we're kind of stashing somewhere, and you feel that you can assist with paying this off, of course we would love to take your money. But we would love to see a contribution, not only from you guys, but the county as well, because even though they did change their locations, this is going to benefit the kids that are in Scott County as well, not just Georgetown as a city. Whenever you look at this, I know that it looks like a big, wide open space, but we use Little Tykes as our company that we work with. This is not my first rodeo, so I have built other playgrounds. I have built other playgrounds that are not handicap accessible. So this is just the company that we have found that works best with us, for us, works with our needs around the clock. So if I make a phone call at 2 a.m., they help me at 2 a.m., and it's been the best partnership for us so far. It is 100% ADA handicap accessible. It will be fenced in for safety precautions for some of our special needs children. This whole entire jungle gym is accessible by ramps so that kids like Kendall that are in wheelchairs can get on and ride around. It's really, really neat. There's braille boards, communication boards, sign language panels within this little jungle gym area. We have something called an inclusive swing. Yes, we're passing around some more in-depth pictures up close. An inclusive swing. So Kendall, who is 55 pounds, she has no muscle in her whatsoever. So when we put her in a swing, she's not able to physically hold herself up. So this is a very close, tight-knit, handicap-accessible swing for kids her size. Next to those are the Mirage swings. So those can actually house up to 300, sometimes 320 pounds, depending on which lock we choose. So those would be for maybe disabled veterans, older children that are visiting. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of something called Stewart Homes, but that is an adult facility for special needs adults that actually live at the facility full time. There's a facility in Frankfort. They come actually visit Kendall and Friends Playground in Mercer County every other week, so twice a month. And it is awesome to see them swinging in these. It's just really, really cool. Now, you'll also see 2 typical swings. Now, when I say this is an ADA fully handicap accessible playground, I also state that not every disability means you're in a wheelchair, and I want to stress that heavily. There are a lot of autistic kids who have full control. They know how to swing. They know what they're doing. They just run off and they don't know how to communicate. They do not understand fear. So if you see something on here that you think is a typical piece of equipment, there's probably a reason. Don't be afraid to ask. Even if it's a week down the road and you think of something or you hear something, I'm going to pass out my business cards. You can call, text, Facebook, email, whatever works best for you, and I will be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. One of the other reasons why we do have some typical equipment on here, like a typical swing, is this is not just for handicapped children like my 6-year-old. We also have a 9-year-old. I know I don't look very old, but I promise I'm old enough to have a 9-year-old. There's nothing wrong with her. She's very intelligent. She's as big as I am, and we try to teach family bonding time. Because up until May 22nd of 2017, my kids never played together on a playground. That's the day we opened Kendall and Friends in Mercer County. So this is not meant just for a family to show up and one kid gets to play on this playground and the other kid has to go to the other one. We want this to be a family bonding time, so this is why we also offer a little bit of typical equipment. Over here, because this is not a Little Tykes product, we are not able to put it on the CAD, but there will be something that has been nicknamed as the Kindle Go-Around. It is a fully handicap accessible merry-go-round, and it is really, really neat. We dig down into the earth, we put it to code, but it is a playground, or it is a merry-go-round that would literally sit within the floor, and you would just be able to roll the wheelchair on, walk it, and spin them around in that. Also, we're going to have a double bay wheelchair swing that will sit right in here. For kids that are like Kendall that are in wheelchairs, it is a ADA accessible ramp that comes down. You wheel the wheelchair up, you lock it, you lock the wheelchair in, the kid swings safely in their wheelchair on the swing, but they still get that same swinging effect that they typically would if they were sitting in a belt swing that would be on a regular playground. Again, it will be fenced in for safety issues. And
If I could interrupt.
yes, sir.
For the council's benefit, the location that was first selected, there's a lot of rock, and it was going to disrupt. It was going to take a lot of rock removal, and it was going to disrupt a larger area than was really warranted. So we actually went back to what probably should have been the first choice. And that is to do it at the pavilion. And Sherry, I've worked with you on this. Can you confirm for the council that this is an appropriate location and it fits within your plan? And I think the council will be excited to allow this to happen, but we just need to make sure this fits with your overall plan for.
Absolutely. As Andrew knows, we had been working on a grant to potentially get a playground out there in the past, and that didn't work out for us. And this seems like an even greater opportunity. So when we found out about Kendall and Friends, we were very excited about it. And to be honest, the more we think about it, the more the pavilion does make a lot of sense. It's very easily accessible from the interstate. We already have handicap accessible bathrooms that are right there that can be used very easily. The overall hope for the campus at the pavilion, I got the pavilion campus, is to continue to put recreational activities there. We still have quite a bit of land left out back, and we have those on the side as well. So we want to continue to add those things. And what's more wonderful than this playground?
Where would this be located at? Do you have
We're
an
looking
idea?
at the back.
So that's-
Yeah, just right, when you go right out the back where the pool is, more on that side right there, locating it toward the tree line.
Were you ever in your long-range plan thinking about putting a outdoor pool in that spot
We haven't thought about putting an outdoor pool. There was talk at one point of putting a spray ground. But as far as outdoor pools go, I think that if we put an outdoor pool, we need to keep it at Suffolk Family Aquatic Center. And there is land for that purposes there as well.
Is
So-
that turf something unique, or is it just unique for the picture?
No,
That
it is.
that is something called, it's a no-fault turf. What that is a rubberized poured-in-place flooring. It is ADA handicap accessible. Unfortunately, ADA states that mulch is handicap accessible. Well, I will argue with you until I am blue in the face that it is not. I don't care what that law states. I'm on a mission to change it. It's just, it's not, okay? So that would be basically like running them over carpet, or if you've ever been on a track, just like a regular track, it would be something like that. But it's
a
very
little
expensive,
fluffy.
but it's shock absorbent. So when a kid, and I have experienced this today with Scott County Schools, they took a field trip out there, one kid fell, bounced right back up like it wasn't anything, no scratches, no scrapes. Not saying that they won't ever get one, but it is a lot safer than mulch. It's a lot safer than concrete or anything else
Cleaner
that we
too.
could put out there.
A lot cleaner.
Oh, yes, definitely a lot cleaner, yes. Mhm.
Follow-up question to Karen's question. With that being said, will the elements, whether it's rain or snow,
No.
long-term, will that do?
Now,
It's made for outdoor use.
it is made for outdoor use. Now, one thing I will say is there are two ways that you can install this playground. And this is kind of why we choose to go with Little Tykes instead of some of the other commercial playground companies, because of the way that installation works. The way that we do it in our way is we put concrete down over top of the earth, and then we build off of that concrete. So everything is embedded into the concrete instead of embedded directly into the earth. So that flooring actually goes on top of a layer of concrete. So whenever you think about our harsh winters, the ground freezes. And then in the springtime, it thaws out and it shifts. So that concrete protects that flooring. Now, that flooring is also made so that it is water buoyant, and it's actually used as like a drain system. So there will not be standing water. If it is a flood or a hard rain, it is made so that it is like a vessel, and the rain will be absorbed into the flooring, and it will come out as a drain system on the sides.
Great.
Now, it is expensive, but
It's
it's
very-
worth it. It is a long-term investment to do it this way versus just putting it over top of rock and letting it go.
I think in Owensboro, don't they have a playground on the
Yes.
river there? Because I was there
So
for
I don't know if you guys
convention.
are aware of this, but there are only two fully handicap accessible playgrounds in the state of Kentucky. One is in Owensboro. It's beautiful, love it. And then ours, Kendall and Friends in Mercer County. This will be number 3.
You would not believe how soft it is to walk on.
Oh yeah,
It's like
I mean
you
it's like
bounce up
Yes.
through it.
it is. I mean, whenever you walk, you can feel that cushion of, every step. You can feel yourself, slightly
Like a
cushioned
sponge.
down into it.
It
Yes.
was really cool.
So it is very expensive, but it's definitely worth the investment.
I have a question for you, follow-up too. Looks really fun, and I absolutely support it. But I'm wondering, once it's installed, who maintains it? What's the maintenance? How does that run?
So whenever we end this project and it's in the ground, and we have our opening ceremony, and then we all love it and we say our goodbyes, that does not mean that I walk away. And that's something that we have all kind of talked about at Parks and Rec. You guys own the pavilion, which means you guys own this. It is a city ownership. If something breaks, if something needs repairs, you call me, I call the people that install it, they come in, they fix it. Now, Parks and Rec, I think you guys told me you do a bi-weekly, or how's that work, every 2 weeks?
Well, we have
monthly maintenance?
CPSI, we have several certified playground safety inspectors on our staff, and we do it with all of our playgrounds. And the training for this playground is the same as for any playground. So we have the inspectors already on staff. We, as far as a maintenance point and safety point and all that, we can do those inspections in-house and get it turned around at Crimson really quick so that we can get them back in to fix whatever would need to be fixed.
And Parks and Rec pays for it, and be in your budget,
No, that's your all's.
it's cities.
Because
Yeah.
it's ultimately on city property.
Now, I know at some point, Crimson, you had said that like if something happens to the flooring and all, that you would come back and help out with that. But, this is just like adding any other playground. It's not gonna, as far as, it's a special usage playground, but it's not special in the concept of how it operates.
It operates the exact same.
So
as
if we
you
can-
had another playground.
If we
out
can
there.
maintain or operate any other playground, then this is just fitting like we would be putting in any other playground into our system.
There's nothing, after it's installed, there's nothing different than how you
Correct.
take care of the rest of them.
Correct.
Same exact protocol, same procedures, same everything. Don't let the look of it frighten you. Don't let that raise red flags as to, oh, well, we're gonna have to do all this extra maintenance. It's really not. It's
Now,
really not like that
we
at
do
all.
a really good job with our preventive maintenance on our playground equipment. So the thing about it is we don't wait till it's broke to fix it. We try to make sure that we get it fixed before it's broke, or that we're making sure that we're staying on top of those kind of issues. And it's just a matter of having the relationship and with little talks and things of that nature. And, like I said, we have the inspectors on staff already. This is covered under that inspection training. And once it's installed, it's comparable to any other playground as far as maintenance and inspections and things of that nature, so.
Crimson, was there a feature on WKYT earlier this year on your playground, or was?
Sure, there's probably been 5 or 6.
Okay.
I think every news station in Kentucky has contacted us at one point or another. Like I said, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you all have. It has been featured on a lot of different news stations, a lot of different companies that have come out and done stories on this.
Well, it's good to see something like this, because when we talk about park and recs, and we talk about playgrounds and stuff, we don't consider how many children that need special needs. Yeah. And what do you say,
There's over 1,500
1,500
students in
and,
the school system at
you know,
this point in time.
And that's just the
this
school
year.
system.
to me, it's a
not
great
all
idea.
school,
I mean,
that's
we need to do what we can
Doesn't
do.
count under 5 or over
Yep.
21. And like he said, and I don't mean this to say, I'm a mom of a special needs kid. Believe me, I get it. I don't think that people are being mean. I don't think they're being rude. I just think that you are not aware of what is out there and the need. That's why I'm here to present that need to you, because I live this need every single day.
And as a city councilman, we represent everybody in the
Everyone,
city.
yes.
And that's the big thing. right
Now,
there.
I will say that since this has come to Mercer County, our economy has boosted a little. Traffic in and out of the park has definitely increased. I'm on our park board as well, so I see how many times it's been rented, how many, I mean, it's all picked up. This is definitely going to impact your city as well. It's gonna impact on your tourism. This is a huge touristic thing. I will say that over and over and over again, because it was argued with me in the beginning that ours would not be. We had an event that, this is no lie, we had people fly in from Guatemala, Chile, Canada, just to participate in the event that represented our playground. It's a huge thing. Miss Wheelchair USA 2013 flew in from Wyoming just to play at Kendall and Friends Playground.
If I could interrupt us to take a vote,
There you go.
or we'll be here all night.
No, I'm
We're 21 minutes in, and this is a slam dunk. So
Mayor, how about a motion, Mayor?
Hey,
I would accept a motion.
Motion.
Thank you, thank you. Motion's been made and seconded, and just to clarify an earlier point, it may be city property, but like every other playground we have, we share the maintenance with the county.
Correct.
No one needs to make an assumption for us about who's gonna maintain it. It will be done the way we've done Parks and Recreation for a very long time. If there are no further questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all.
Thank you all.
there is one thing that I do want to touch base on, just so you all are aware. Whenever this is all said and done with flooring, excavation, everything, it's going to be close to about $400,000. Don't let that number scare you, because I promise, I've seen it happen in very quick time. Now, we do have several donors already that have promised to knock that price of concrete out, gravel out, so those numbers keep dwindling down. I will say that for the price tag for the equipment only, $289,000. If that is not paid off by December 31st of 2017, we are subjected to a price change with the new year. So we have a lot of fundraising to do. We are working very, very hard. We are writing grants. We are doing fundraisers. We're doing bake sales. You name it, we're doing it. Car washes, etc. So that's why time crunch is so important on this. You know, we have other time to raise additional funds, but that equipment has to be paid off by December 31st, or it could change in the price. It could go up significantly. It could not change, but we won't know that until the first of the year. So that's why I mentioned earlier, you know, I'm not standing before you to ask for funds, but if you find available funds later on in meetings or whatnot, and you feel that you can give, please do, because we have a lot of money to come up with in a very short amount of time. Thank you guys, we appreciate it.
And keep checking Parks and Rec's Facebook website, because we've got a lot of activities to raise funds for this. It's going to be popping up on that. So keep checking and come out and join us.
All right.
Okay.
We'll take anything from a penny up to a big million if you really, you know. $5. Yeah, that's what we harass most people for. You can give at least $5, right? Thank you all.
Thank you guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item 8 on your agenda is first, A is second reading of the property tax and motor vehicle tax ordinance. Thank you, Ms. Tackett, for sponsoring that.
You're
And
welcome, Mayor.
Council will recall that we have left our rates unchanged.
An ordinance providing for and making the real property, personal property, motor vehicle, and watercraft tax levy for city purposes for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2017 and ending June 30th, 2018 inclusive. Whereas the City Council for the City of Georgetown, Kentucky is required by KRS 92.280 to enact by ordinance each year a tax levy on all real property, personal property, motor vehicle, and watercraft. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council for the City of Georgetown, Kentucky as follows. Section 1. That the following tax levy is hereby made for city purposes for the City of Georgetown, Kentucky for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2017 and ending June 30, 2018 inclusive to wit. For the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2017 and ending June 30th, 2018 inclusive, there is hereby made a tax levy of 6.5 cents on each $100 of assessed real property, 6.5 cents on each $100 of assessed personal property, and 16.8 cents on each $100 of assessed motor vehicle and watercraft, which tax exceeds shall be designated to the general fund for the general operation of city government. Section 2. All matters relating to the payment of the taxes imposed on motor vehicles and watercraft here under shall be in accordance with KRS Chapter 134-800. Section 3. That upon all taxes for real property and personal property levied herewith, which are unpaid on January 1st, 2018, there shall begin to accrue, attach, and be added from said date a flat penalty of 15% onto the total amount of said taxes then due and payable through June 31, 2018, after which the flat penalty shall be 20%. Additional tax bills not paid before March 1, 2018 shall have added to them interest at the rate of 1% per month or fraction of a month until said taxes are paid. The penalty and interest as provided herein shall be added to said unpaid taxes and collected by the city finance director and or city clerk. Should the real or personal property tax herein become delinquent, the city financial officer, the city clerk, and or the city attorney are authorized to file suit to collect all delinquent taxes plus court costs and expenses, including a reasonable attorney fee incurred by reason of the delinquency. Section 4. If any section, subsection, sentence, clause, or phrase of this ordinance is held unconstitutional or otherwise invalid, such infirmity shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions of this ordinance. Section 5. All ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance are hereby repealed. Section 6. This ordinance shall take effect after its passage and publication according to law. Publicly introduced and read for the first time August 28th, 2017. Publicly read the second time September 11th, 2017.
Motion, Mayor.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. If there are any questions, we'd be glad to take them, and if not, we'll call the roll.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Tingle Sames?
Yes.
Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Mr. Lesby?
Yes.
Mrs. Singer Erdley?
Yes.
Mrs. Butcher Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Thank you. The next item under city attorney is second reading of the award for electric franchise. Of course, each of the three electrical providers in Georgetown responded to our bid and have agreed to those terms. What we're doing is, with this vote, is, of course, we've already settled the other issue. What this ordinance does is says we want KU, Bluegrass, RECC, and Owen RECC to do business in Georgetown. So if you would.
An ordinance awarding an electric franchise. Summary. 1. Awards the bid of the non-exclusive electric franchise established in Ordinance 2017-12 to Kentucky Utilities, Owen Electric, and Bluegrass Energy. 2. Authorizes the mayor to sign the electric franchise agreements. 3. Provides a repeal of inconsistent law, severability of provisions, and an effective date of September 18, 2017 upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the Georgetown City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324. Introduced and publicly read for the first time August 28, 2017. Publicly read the second time September 11, 2017.
Thank you. And Ms. Tackett is the sponsor of that.
Motion, Mayor.
Thank you. Motion's been made
Second.
and seconded. And if there are no questions, we'll call the roll.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mrs. Butcher Conway?
Yes.
Mrs. Singer Erdley?
Yes.
Mr. Lesby?
Yes.
Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Mrs. Tingle Sames?
Yes.
Mrs.
Thank-
Tackett?
Yes.
Go again.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
I want to get them all. But
That
I
was-
started talking before you were through. Thank you. Item C under city attorney is a resolution improving a memorandum for agreement for the Toyota donation to Scott United. And this is the one we've talked about. We're through the incentive package. Toyota will essentially return $100,000 to the city and $100,000 to the county, with the understanding that we place those dollars with Scott County United to use for economic development purposes. Scott United has already put together an economic development board that will handle this function and determine how these funds will be spent. The mayor of Georgetown, the Scott County Judge Executive, and the president of Scott County United are all voting ex officio members. Then there are 4 other members selected from the Scott United membership, those 4 at-large members. The at-large members have been assigned 1, 2, and 3-year terms, 1, 2, 3, 4-year terms. They can be reappointed. The 8th member of the board will be the director of Scott United, and that vote will be, that ex officio position will have no vote. So it will be the 7-person body within Scott United that will actually administer this $200,000 annually, as long as there's an incentive package in place. Now, we specifically wrote the MOA so that the city's normal contribution and the county's normal contribution, we've each been making a $40,000 contribution in recent years. We didn't want, not that it would have been a problem, but we thought that our direct allocation should not be spent by the 7-person board. But you all can retain your authority about how you want that money used with Scott United. So we excluded our normal contribution from this board, but the $200,000 annually will pass through this board. and be glad to answer any questions that you have about the way this is put together. We to make certain that we were matching the intent from back when we started these conversations, went back to Will James and we revisited some of our conversations from December to be very specific about the way we understood each other on what the money can be used for. And the general understanding that we have is that we will not use these funds to, for example, to buy more land for a business park. That's not the purpose. We want to support economic activity. And that can either be an economic development activity like market analysis or targeting certain industries for growth, or it could be an incubator or a spec building for an incubator purpose. We could do things like that. This board will be given wide latitude to determine how to best promote economic development with this money. So,
Mayor, is it gonna run through the Revenue Commission? Is that why Mr. Hall's name's on here?
yes.
Okay.
The way we're tracking the credit is through the Revenue Commission.
Gotcha.
And actually, we're now, Connie, 2 or 3 months into receiving those credits. We've already been receiving it's going to be $10,000 a month for the first 10 months of the year for the city and the county. And we've already been receiving those now for 2 or 3 months. Scott is holding that until these contracts are in place.
Okay.
And then we'll transfer it on. This should give the auditors fits trying to figure out, but we know we're doing it correctly.
Who's the current president of Scott United?
Mike Hawkinsmith.
Okay.
So if there are any other questions, why don't we read the resolution?
Resolution regarding contributions from Toyota Motor Manufacturing of Kentucky to the City of Georgetown on behalf of Scott County United for economic development purposes and authorizing the mayor to sign relevant documents. Whereas Toyota Motor Manufacturing of Kentucky has committed to donate $200,000 a year for the life of its KJRA incentive of the funds it would receive under the KJRA incentive equally divided between the City of Georgetown and Scott County for and on behalf of Scott United Incorporated for economic development purposes. And whereas the City, County, Scott County United, and Georgetown Scott County Revenue Commission have memorialized the terms by which the city and the county will annually appropriate these funds to Scott United for economic development. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Georgetown, Kentucky as follows. The council does hereby approve the terms of the memorandum of agreement between the City, County, Scott County United, and Georgetown Scott County Revenue Commission regarding appropriation of the funds for economic development, which MOA is attached hereto and incorporated by reference, and the mayor is authorized to execute all relevant documents on behalf of the city.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
I make a motion.
Thank you. Motion's been made
Second, Mayor.
and seconded. Thank you.
I'm trying to keep my mouth shut, but it's like, okay.
I'm stopping tonight.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And I just wanted I was thumbing over in this memorandum of agreement just so that you all can see this. You all were looking at the people who sign off on it, and the document will be signed by myself, Judge Lesby, Mike Hawkinsmith as president of Scott United, Scott Hall, since he's in the money flow, and we also added a signature line for Toyota, simply to say that they have seen it, reviewed it, and are aware of it, and we're all on the same page. Thank you. Next, we have a resolution regarding the Cardome Plat and Escrow agreement. This should be one of the final stages of our transaction. Consolidation plat that references all the right drawers and pages, and the escrow agreement, which is where we will place the deed in escrow. And as long as the church meets the conditions of the escrow, then either we or some future council will be in a position to let that deed go.
Yeah, this resolution is solely regarding that escrow agreement. The lease is done.
Yeah.
This is about the very complicated transaction of getting that escrow in place and getting the mayor to sign the deed and making sure we're referencing the right plats and all that stuff.
You want a motion?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's been a long time coming to get to the point where we could put that deed in escrow. Thank you all. At long last, and I know Millie will be pleased with this, we have a resolution to approve to accept the TAP grant.
I am very pleased.
These grants seem like you're swimming through molasses on the timing, but we're at the point of accepting that. We don't really need to read that whole resolution, do we? Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Thank you.
Second.
A second.
Women on the end.
Women on the end.
That's a motion.
All right.
Fighting hard.
All in,
I was biting my tongue.
Never
Millie.
give up on us.
all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item F on your agenda is a municipal order approving a contract with Kriss Lowry, who we had talked with about helping us with the potential CDB, Community Development Block Grant application in the Boston area. And from a Robert's Rules of Order perspective, we looked up what the right action is. I would ask that the council postpone indefinitely consideration of that contract.
Motion, Mayor. So what you need?
I'll second.
Second. Thank you. Just for questions, we're not quite ready to do this contract. The application that we're considering is not due until August of next year. And there seem to be a couple of questions that we'd like some time to iron out. So we just thought the easiest thing for us to do would be postpone indefinitely. And at some point when things are ripe, we'll bring it back.
Never comes back. It's just tabled.
It essentially tabled, but it can be brought back at any time,
Okay.
according to Robert's Rules of Order.
Okay, I couldn't remember. It's fine.
Yeah. In fact, we had Tracy
Look it up.
look it up today to make sure we were taking the action that would give the council
Correct action, huh?
the greatest flexibility
Sure.
later on. We didn't vote on that, did we?
We did? Oh, no. We didn't do all in favor?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Also in your packet, I didn't think this was a major enough item to ask Kyle to come sit through the meeting this evening. But you'll recall, we've been, Chief Ward has been talking about some concrete needs when you back into 2 of our fire stations. The truck's getting a pretty good jolt. And rather than try and raise that hydraulically, I think we'd rather, the trucks are so heavy that we want to dig it out and replace that concrete. So we'd have a municipal order and what is that dollar amount? Do you have it in front of you? $27,792. That does both stations, Chief? Sounds good. Is there a motion for approval?
Make a motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chief? Item 10 on the agenda is first reading of a mask ordinance. Now, the committee's police committee's up to speed on this, but the rest of the council may not be.
Getting close to Halloween.
Let's see, where to start. If you've watched TV, you've seen the protests that are going on nationwide. The police department is simply trying to get ahead of that. Other communities similar to us have done that. Most recently with Pikeville, if you've seen the news, Pikeville had a pretty large protest that took place. And they enacted an ordinance that made it a criminal penalty to wear a mask or other head covering during a protest. For us, we would like to do something similar to that, so if we found ourselves in a situation where we did have a planned protest or something like that happen, we would be ahead of the curve and could simply give the individual an option. You're more than welcome to protest peacefully, you just have to do it without your head covered. Having your head covered provides a level of anonymity that it's proven and known to create violence. We have no way to go back and track them. We'll film the protest, and you simply can't identify, or you have no way of going back and finding somebody that's causing trouble or would need to be charged criminally with a crime. So that's kind of the background for it, and I'll be happy to try to answer any questions that you have about it.
Makes sense to me.
We've, in working with Pikeville, and they were a lot of help on this ordinance, we've written in all the exemptions that one would need. If you're a motorcycle helmet, you have a face mask, that's okay. If you're working with chemicals or something and you have a gas mask on, that's okay. But you just shouldn't be out in the middle of the day with a ski mask covering your face, and we will ask you to take it off. And I think it's a reasonable ordinance. I don't think it's an infringement, and one that your police committee agreed and was willing to bring it to the full council.
Well, I have questions. I just, haven't talked to anybody about it, so I have, what you said is different than what the ordinance says. Because you definitely said about the protests and stuff like that, 100% on top of that, because that's why they get away with it, because you can't see. Then reading this, I'm thinking about, when people walk in with robberies and things like that, you can't see their face because they've got a hoodie on or whatever. But what about just the basics? You're basically telling nobody in the city of Georgetown they could wear a hoodie. Is that from not saying that it's just related to the riots? Is there any way to make the ordinance at a little bit more scale? Because I'm reading in general terms, and it seems like it's open end to anything. You're giving some inclusions that you can't, like the motorcycle. Although I don't know, the motorcycle helmet, you wear it downtown if you're in the middle of a riot or something, wanting to be in the middle of it. And well, I could wear the motorcycle helmet, but is there?
Only if you're riding a motorcycle.
Only if you can't show up in the middle of a protest with a full face motorcycle helmet on and a face shield where I can't identify who you are. This ordinance would prohibit that.
And I think the answer to the hoodie question is, it's only if somebody's going to pull the hoodie over till it covers their face.
Exactly, it's your face covered.
It's not
so you
just
can't
putting
be
the hoodie
ID'd.
up when it's cold. That's
Correct.
cool.
It's a face coverage.
It's only about covering the face.
It goes here. No, a hoodie just covers your head.
And I want to make sure that we don't present this in any way that confuses the council. I think it does apply to general circumstances.
It does.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It will be most effective to law enforcement during a protest. But I think you're correct, Karen. This ordinance applies generally.
Yes.
And if it's in the middle of the summer, we don't want you walking around downtown with a mask on.
It says where it says a substantial portion of the face is hidden or concealed to conceal the identity of the wearer. I can see the importance of it. And I can see, because I know what the films you're always watching, the people are looking down, the hoodie's here, you can't see their face. But I can also see where it could be taken into other situations where it might, because hoodies are so popular now. I mean, I wear them all the time, especially when the weather's bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do you do about when you're in the bad weather circumstances and somebody wears for weather protection?
I think that's covered in the ordinance. That specifically states that, if it's inclement weather, you can wear a sock cap or you can wear a
Yeah, there's honestly, the way it's written, there's not going to be any situation where you can wear anything that's going to completely conceal your face. Now, I mean, if you want to put a scarf over your mouth, you're not going to be in violation of this ordinance.
If you had a scarf and hoodie, you are.
I think if you're concealing your face enough to where you can't tell who you are, you're in violation of that. But there's a simple option. If the police say, look, we think there's suspicious activity and you're covering your face, you need to uncover your face.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to be that flip about it,
Right.
but that's kind of the issue, is we're not going to look for people who are wearing
Right.
masks.
Remember
I
several
can
years
see
back where we
somebody-
had the people that were wearing the clown mask?
Yeah.
That last year, I think, and that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we had absolutely nothing to stop that. Nothing. I mean, we would literally get out with people that were wearing the clown mask. They were doing it as pranks, whatever, but it actually did scare
you
some
don't
people.
know.
Sure.
Yeah, but you don't know. This would obviously give my officers a little discretion. Hey, look, there's an ordinance. You can't do this. But the discretion. Take the mask off, no problem. If you don't want to take the mask off, then you got a problem. But it's back on the individual. You have an option. Just take it off.
Yeah, and I doubt if children are out sleigh riding with a full face mask,
They're
you're
not gonna
probably
stop.
not gonna bother.
No,
Well,
no,
if you're
no.
under 16 years, then.
Karen, if you're
Yeah,
out,
that's all
If you're
good.
under
I don't
16
think
years,
so.
if you're out
16
walking and
years
it's
in.
20 below zero and you're covered up real good, they're gonna let you keep on walking.
Well, I look at it like
or take you to jail. I'm not.
There you go.
I look at it like this.
Here's an excuse.
This
Unless you
one-
have an AK-47 in your hand, then you'll probably get stopped.
Yeah.
This
No, I
ordinance
have
is
the right
not,
to carry firearms.
this ordinance is not gonna keep me from wearing my hat or my scarf around my face
No,
when it's inclement weather.
No.
I'm not even gonna give it a thought.
This is a safety
At all.
ordinance, what it
This is
is.
safe.
And if I did, and they came up and said, "Hey, who is that?" I say, "It's me, brother." No big deal.
they may ask even to borrow your scarf. I mean, you know.
I mean, right.
Well, way back when I used to live in New York, the Halloween parade, it was always a big, big thing. And of course, everybody's got their masks on. Biggest day of crime because
Yes.
people can rob, rape, mug, or whatever, and you don't know who the heck they are. Biggest, and that's one of the things I learned early on about that. And that's the biggest thing with crime. You can't stop them. You can't protect people.
Robert, I got a question about the penalty
Not at all.
phase of it. It says any person that violates the provision shall be guilty of a misdemeanor and fined $250 and in prison for no more than 50 days. It doesn't say anything about a warning.
That's where officer discretion comes in. I mean, our officers always have the option to give warnings. I mean, that's with pretty much anything we encounter, whether it be speeding or any of those offenses. They have the ability to use good
Should
discretion.
we put the wording in there, though, that they're going to be asked to remove it, and if they fail to remove it, then they get fined?
What if I've been out with a guy 3 times in a row, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, about the same guy, same situation? I shouldn't have to warn him the 3rd time. I should give him a citation, or I should go ahead and give him some sort of penalty.
And I'll just say that all criminal laws are written exactly the way this one is. There's never any discretion written into it. It's just, if this is what you do, if you're found guilty of violating that, here is the penalty.
Right.
I would hesitate to differ from that.
I 100% trust our officers to use good discretion in situations like this.
I'm completely in favor of this. I was just wondering about tweaking the wording just a tad. To bridge that, in time of a criminal activity or.
99% of the time, I agree with the warning, but there's probably that 1% where there probably needs to be that immediate action. I don't want to handcuff them and take that option away from them for the 1% of the time that they actually may need it. That's my only fear.
Because you might give that person a warning and he go down around the block and something happen.
Okay, well, council understands the concept
Yes.
and what we're trying to address with the ordinance. So, Chief, why don't we go ahead with first reading tonight, and then if anybody's got questions, hopefully they can have a more detailed conversation with
And-
you or Chief Bossy.
Pikeville has offered to field phone calls or questions or anything that we would need to do. They were very pleased with the way that turned out in their community because they had that ordinance in effect. And there's videos that are on YouTube with our officers literally making people take those things off before they could go to protest. They still allowed them to go attend the protest. You just don't do it with your face covered.
Is there any way to take it a little bit so it goes, the only thing that bothers me with it, because I understand why it's a good thing, but the only thing that bothers me is you're putting something that's a fashion statement, something that has a practical use for people, and now saying you can't really use it anymore because I don't know any hoodie that sits back here. They all come up here when you're using a hoodie, but you're punishing all of the community for the actions of what some can do. Is there any way to tailor it down?
I disagree with that.
I don't really see it as a punishment.
No.
I mean, to be honest, I mean, the hoodies, everybody wears them. My kids wear them. I don't see that as being an issue. What he doesn't do is he doesn't pull it so tight that you literally could just eye holes out of it, or not even eye holes.
Okay.
And I think we would take that as a case-by-case basis. If we had something going on, we had several people that showed up like that, we may ask them, hey, open up the face a little bit on that.
It would be nice if we could limit it more to, I mean, what we're trying to get at is people who are concealing their identity in the commission of a crime.
Right,
But
right.
or in the incitement of violence. But
Mhm.
then you start limiting yourselves too much, and you also start getting into First Amendment issues. If you start saying, under what conditions it's okay, you start to push the envelope.
Oh, so that's what my thing, you know, your First Amendment right. We don't want the violent protests. We want, if the protests happen, that's fine, if they're peaceful, but if they're violent, then yes, you want to arrest the people that are doing the action. But then on the flip side of it, are you getting into my First Amendment rights to say, or it's not First Amendment rights, but I want to wear a hoodie. I want to wear a red, white, and blue hoodie on, and then maybe somebody says, hey, you need to take that hoodie off because maybe you're on the other side, or maybe because you're saying a statement that I don't agree with, or whatever, and now this is on the books saying, so, you know, I know that I'm going further than what this is intended. The intention of this is pure, but I'm always thinking of, it's always that slippery slope. And is this becoming a slippery slope when the whole population is involved into it, not just what we're really trying to target? So,
Trust me when I say that my initial reaction was immediately to worry about First Amendment. What does this mean for First Amendment rights? And we're satisfied that this fits within that narrow framework that you have to put for governmental regulation, and it does not in any way stifle lawful First Amendment expression of opinion. It essentially just says if you want to express that opinion, you can't conceal your identity to do it in an open public place.
And I'm doubting we're going to have a room full of protesters if we tell them they can't wear a mask. We might. They've surprised me before, but I don't think so. Would be.
Thank you.
An ordinance of the City of Georgetown, Kentucky seeking to promote the safety of our community by regulating the wearing of hoods and/or masks within the city limits. Summary. 1. Prohibits the public wearing of hoods, masks, false whiskers, or personal disguises, or devices that substantially hide or cover the face of the wearer, subject to certain exemptions. 2. Provides for repeal of inconsistent ordinances, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage of publication. A full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324. Introduced and publicly read for the first time September 11th, 2017.
Thank you. So any questions for the chief or the committee? We'll undertake second reading at our next meeting. Thank you all. So we're at the point of the meeting where council comments. Do you have anything tonight?
Chief, I was going to ask you about, were you here? I don't think you were. I think it was Eric Colson when we talked about the trees out in front of the station, the ash trees.
Yeah. We talked about that.
Yeah, they obviously don't look so good. I was just.
He did get confirmation from District 7 they want to take care of it.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay, I was just following up. That's it. No big deal. Appreciate that.
District 7 is committed to it.
Yeah.
Ash trees are.
Okay.
I love trees. Maybe it's a replacement situation, you know.
No, sir.
You're good? Holly?
Actually, I was going to ask Andrew, some of us got this thing for Marcy's Law from Kentucky. Do you know what that's about?
No, I
Have you got one?
believe I got that.
That's my thing. It's supposed to be constitutional protection for rights of crime victims, and they not say anything about it. And some of us got it.
I
We
got
got
At
some.
home?
No,
No,
here.
just right here on our
Just right here
desk.
on our
Oh,
desk.
here.
And I just
Karen, you look at yours.
kind of wanted to get your idea on it, because
Yeah,
it
I'll
looks
have
like
to-
they were looking at, for us to sign it and endorse it.
How much?
And I don't know, because I don't see how crime victims couldn't have constitutional rights. And that's kind of what it says.
I think I know what
There,
this
Mayor.
is about, but I'll do a little bit of research
Okay,
on
if
it.
you could.
There's a bill that's been going around state to state
Okay.
on this victims of crimes.
Okay.
It's very specific act that they're looking for, but yeah, let me do some research.
Okay.
I don't want to speak to it with
Well, what was on it, it said, you know, it's in Kentucky, but it's paid for by Marcy's Law from Nevada.
Yeah, it's
Thank
going
you.
all over the country with state to state.
Yeah, okay.
Anything else, Molly?
Thanks for looking.
That is anything else.
No, nothing.
Millie?
I'm just extremely happy that the TAP grant is going, and I
Ditto.
need to keep
Ditto.
going, because we need a great deal more,
Ditto.
a whole lot more money to make all this happen, so
Sure do.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all.
Karen?
How was the trip to the lighting facility?
We didn't go.
Way to go.
Okay, it was good.
Oh, I meant to tell you, the rest of the council.
Still in the dark.
It's the groundbreaking.
That's a groundbreaking.
For the
Second
school,
school.
the school changed the date of the groundbreaking
Yeah.
because of the
And I
bad
couldn't get to
weather.
that because I'd done
Because of the
committed
rain.
Yeah,
for
Millie and
Friday
I
to
were
be off. I
there,
couldn't
Mark
get there.
was
Wednesday.
there, so.
So we're trying to reschedule, and, you know, once you take something off the calendar and then try and get it back on for
almost
6 or
impossible.
7 people, we just haven't gotten it back on yet.
Okay, well,
I
that's
hope
it.
you do it sometime in September or, before October 9th, because I'm having a full knee replacement. I won't be there.
Are you really? We'll get it done so you can go.
Thanks.
There you go.
I really did want to go, but if not, I'll be
Do it first week of October, I'm free.
Well, January, and I'm free.
We got KLC first week.
I'm going to Tennessee too, son, the first week, fall break. Yeah.
All right. Anything else, Connie?
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to ask where we were on our bids for Derby Estates.
Well, that sounds
Question?
Good question. Good question.
You have to sign up for it.
Have we hired out? No. We're getting ready to do the bids for the engineer
Engineering's done, we need construction.
and bids for the construction, and I obviously don't know. We need to talk to Kyle.
Why don't we put it on the agenda for
But-
next time?
We do have all the easements signed.
Put it on the agenda for the next time. Yeah, well, do help with Connie and Judy's help. We have all the easements, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you've signed them, right?
I've signed them.
Okay, so
We're waiting on a
you
construction
dropped the
bid.
ball. Nobody.
Just say me. It's easier. It's easier that way.
Nah. So, that would be great.
Why don't we
Next-
put that on the agenda for our next
Please.
meeting?
I got it.
Thank you. All right.
And then the other thing I wanted to ask about, and this might be a Kyle question too, a lady that lives over at 104 Fitzgerald, Place. It's a cul-de-sac. There's a lot of, it's mostly sludge and stuff. It's in her, I think it's a sewer treatment or a stormwater issue, but if it could be checked out.
Or it's
104 Fitzgerald Place.
Is it in a cul-de-sac?
It is. It's in Bradford.
Okay.
Like sludgy. She doesn't know who's responsible for cleaning that out, and that's not something that she's able to do.
If it's a storm sewer feature, it's
Clean storm.
ours to clean out,
Yeah.
so we'll take care of
Thank you.
Yes,
That's all
ma'am.
I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Anything, Chuck?
Do we have any plans to tackle the HOA ordinance?
It needs to come back to us, and you've asked that it come back to us. And we need to get a meeting between us and the Lexington Home Builders Association scheduled and under our belt. And now that you've asked twice, we'll try and get that more active for you.
That's all.
Thank you.
You can do Mark and then come back to me.
Oh, you
I
got
didn't
something
want
else?
to say.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't want to jump in for Mark. I just wanted to challenge my fellow council people that for the Heart Walk, that the city's got the team together, and I brought my donation to Devon. So if anybody wants to follow suit, they can. But we're trying to get it done here in Georgetown. Just wanted to say. There's my money.
No, we're gonna
Art
walk.
walk. We're
Yeah,
gonna walk.
We're gonna walk.
I will give you.
I'm not, I can't because my
I know
knee,
you can't.
so I'm donating.
Okay. We'll walk for you.
Do you have anything else, Chuck?
No.
Good. Yes, sir.
Is there an update on the road improvements on Lemons Mill Road that we're looking at making?
We think we may have gotten good news today. We're closer to our encroachment permit that's been holding us up. We're funded, we're engineers.
We're funded, we're engineers, we're just waiting on the state to say it's okay to tie onto the main road. And they've been holding that up for a while based on the traffic light issue.
More than likely, though, is that going to be sometime
It-
early next year?
No, sir. We expect that to get done this paving season.
Okay.
We still expect that, Mark. And also, Andrew's got one other thing, but there's been some news. The budget director,
Children.
Secretary Chilton, sent out an email letter, I assume a hard copy will follow, to every mayor and the judge in the state, indicating that the new actuarial assumptions that go into calculating pension deficits. You know, if your assumptions are too optimistic about the rate of return, the picture looks rosier than it's really going to be. So I think what they're trying to do now is have very accurate and realistic actuarial projections, and they've lowered the rate of return, which increases our deficit. And the secretary sent letters to every mayor and judge indicating that our CERS payments next year would substantially increase. And they have given us an estimate of what our specific increase will be. And if there are no structural changes, he has let us know that next year we will pay $1.4 million more in pension costs than we pay right now, with no more employees. The county's additional burden will be $1.5 million.
That's how you
Now,
make up your deficit.
Now, Kentucky League of Cities and Kentucky Association of Counties and others are urging the administration to phase in those changes rather than doing them in one fell swoop. As of this point, I was told today about the secretary's letter that, well, don't you want him to tell you the truth? Well, yes, we do. But an additional $1.4 million in expenses to the city of Georgetown will impact us in ways that we can't imagine.
We won't be doing anything extra.
We won't be doing the capital projects that we want to do. We'll be struggling to hold on to the staff we've got rather than expanding our staff as the fastest growing city in Kentucky.
Right.
So these are, in my interview with our local reporter today, I mentioned that if it was the secretary's intention to strike fear into everybody's heart, he was probably successful.
So that is based on the current, paying on the current employees. It has nothing to do with past employees. It's current.
This is only current.
Okay.
So this is a very fluid situation. What we are doing is still urging our key employees, our firefighters, our policemen and women, we're asking them to stay calm and not make quick retirement decisions.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening all around Georgetown.
Yeah.
The police chief and fire chief in Frankfort have already taken retirement.
Mm-hmm.
I'm told that 3 of the top 4 officers in the Frankfort Police Department are going to take retirement because they're not going to wait on what might happen with the pension system. Now, I've talked to Senator Thayer and Representative Pratt, and they all counsel us to stay calm and wait until we see what the General Assembly actually puts forth. And that's what we're urging our people to do. It seemed to me that Secretary Chilton's letter today was 180 degrees in the opposite direction.
Yeah, according to Senator Thayer's email. You're right.
You know, for smaller towns, it's rough. It would be rough on us. But for smaller towns, they can't juggle people, they can't juggle income, they don't have the income that we have. So I don't see what smaller communities are gonna do.
Karen, we look at counties in eastern Kentucky that even though they knew they shouldn't spend coal severance tax on recurring expenses, they had no choice to keep their firemen and policemen. So they've now lost coal severance funds that they use for operating funds, and they're looking at an additional hit on their retirement obligations. So, yeah, I don't know. I mentioned in my interview this morning with Mr. Atkins that if the Secretary's intention was to strike fear in our hearts, he was successful. If his intention was to make us more pliable about what we might accept, I don't know if he was successful or not. But I think it is something that we need to be aware of, that this is not an abstract issue that the General Assembly is dealing with now. We've been hit by a 2x4, and we've been told to anticipate $1.4 million in additional expenses next year.
Well, if it's going to come, it's better for us to know now to anticipate that than to wait until you're working in the middle of the budget and then all of a sudden, here,
That's right.
you got
The,
this.
the other big issue that seems to be tied to this is that CERS is working very hard to separate from KERS. And we thought there was some real possibility for that to happen. But I spoke with a couple of state officials today that told me that they were not for that and that was not going to pass and it wasn't going to happen. We shall see. Just not to end the meeting on a downer for you.
Well, if you wanted to put fear in our heart going home, you did.
Or just try to make it pliable.
Well, you have to be honest. Make people think.
That's right. Andrew, you had something that you
Yeah,
wanted to bring up.
one of you all had brought up at the last meeting the Christian Way PCA car show. I don't remember who it was,
Me.
but looking at the Plat, it doesn't look like that's even a road. It's an access point that people happen to be using as a road.
Right.
So I don't see anything that prohibits them from blocking that off and using it. I'm going to recommend that not be a regular practice because people do use that.
But whose property is it?
It's theirs.
Okay.
It's not
To
even,
Chuck's point, is it we were going to see if it was a public thoroughfare.
it's not even, if you look at the Plat, it's not even,
Right.
it's not even characterized as a road.
So let me ask you a
If
question.
you look at P&Z's website, they have a street ownership
Right.
system, and it shows where all the roads are. It just shows a big blank space there, because it's not truly a road.
Well, their biggest question and concerns they've got is during the day, they have their 2- and 3-year-olds go across the road to the playground over there by United Methodist Church. They come up that, on the other road coming in by the Shell station, whips around that curve, and they're just flying through there. They're wanting to know, and I'll have to bring it up, Chuck, you matter, they want to put a gate right there and stop it.
I think that warrants a sit down, because I think you got all kinds of considerations with surrounding property owners and with the public that we might want to talk about the policy behind that. But if you want my opinion on what the document says, it calls that an what did it call it? An access point or something. It doesn't use the word street, doesn't use the word road. It's basically an ingress and egress for that property.
Right.
It's about people being able to get into that property.
To go to that church.
To go to that church.
Exactly right.
Well, it's kind
There's
of
another way to
done
get
with
into
the-
the church.
With
isn't there?
the
If you
pool,
go
you put a gate up
beside
here,
McDonald's.
you just come in and
Mhm.
look at that, but you put a gate up there, and when we made the conversation, it was that gate sometimes could be open for the traffic that's coming out of Marketplace, but most of the time, it's closed
Closed
90% of the
90% of the
time.
time.
So, because it's our property, do close it or not close it.
And back to Chuck's question, if they've got the right, I'm going to guess the church is going to be willing to block it.
Well, it's not
To
as much
protect
as,
their children.
it's not as much as the church as this PCA, the school that's up there.
Well, and
That- yeah,
I refer
yeah,
to it as the
yeah,
church,
yeah,
but I understand
yeah,
it's
yeah.
Providence Christian Academy.
Yeah.
But
What-
isn't there a term in real estate that if something's been used that way for a long time, that it's expected to be that? I don't remember the term.
I don't know, but they've been asking about this for a long time, and we finally got the answer that they've been wanting to hear.
Yeah. I mean, there are general principles about laying off things for the public use, and after 15 years, it's considered to be a public road.
Right. Isn't it adverse ownership?
But adverse
Yeah,
possession,
adverse
but
possession.
the public can't really adverse possess against private property, and that law, that generic law about something becoming public after 15 years of use, it really applies to roads. Like if you've got a drive that's set off that
Alley.
you're allowing people to use, then it's hard for you to say, well, you can't any longer use that. But that also presumes it's been used longer than 15 years. Or that's why I'm saying it's not as simple as saying, yeah, they can go put up a gate tomorrow. But it's worth having a conversation about what they can and might do.
Okay, okay.
What about changing the traffic flow in the parking lot? In other words, not blocking it off, but making it very inconvenient to go that way.
Do not enter or something.
Now, they could do that because they own the parking lot.
Yeah.
I mean, if
Should
they
put
were
a
to
do
want to
not
put
enter,
up,
or-
you know, speed bumps or something like that, I think it's private property and you have the right to do it. I'm just urging everybody to kind of sit down and talk about what it looks like to truly block that road off. Whether that's a good idea
I
or
think
not.
one of the options was have the road shut down during school time, which would be from 6 in the morning till 3, 4 in the afternoon, or 5, and then open it up after they leave. That was an option their main concern, and Chuck, we've discussed, is the safety of every child that goes up there.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like, now that we know the status of the road, we ought to have that sit down, because we know what the school can and can't do, and we know what the school wants to accomplish. And if there are gonna be problems with closing it, let's at least point those out and have we've been asked about it. We ought to get everybody together and come.
I guess as far as the reason I wanted to bring it up now is as far as them wanting to close that for their car show, I don't see any reason why they couldn't go ahead and do that.
Well, they've done that for years. They'll block it off for a couple hours and then open it back up, so, yeah.
But it sounds like we need to have a bigger conversation
About the main,
the way it's
a
used.
gate up there, so.
Okay.
Okay, I'll pass it on to Rita, and she'll pass it on to them tomorrow.
Have them get in touch with me and we'll sit down.
Okay.
Was there anything else to come before the council? If not, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah.
You did win.